if you have somebody who's resonating high enough, it's almost like an agreement. Like this space is not for you. Okay, if this, and they'll stay out of it. So it's a respect almost, and then a certain amount of authority. So that's for the dead, right? So because the other thing about the dead, if they're in your space a lot, you can start to feel heavy and not good physically. Why? Because the dead have a decay frequency in them. They're dead, yeah, and they're not awake dead. I mean, or they're not even like crossed over into that field of pure source energy and now awake. They're dead. So they're running a decay frequency that for you in a body can start to affect you. Okay, so meaning it can start to create dissolution in the body or decay in the body. Okay, or decay in the emotional well-being, or the decay in relationship, or the decay in opportunity. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's too much decay. Now, let me just make this clear. We all have decay frequency to some degree. We're human, right? Our bodies are aging.
We're dying as we live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just part of being human, right? So that's normal to have some kind of decay frequency because like you're in a body. And as you rise in frequency resonance, that starts to shift a bit or a lot depending on what's happening. And if you have too much though, decay frequency around you, it starts to tip. It becomes unhealthy, right? Because it's not like the normal bodily process of breakdown. It's too much heaviness. And people can start to physically become ill. You can start to emotionally feel weird. All that sort of stuff can happen. And you don't really want that decay frequency around you. So it's best to like clear
it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's helpful. Aside from the dead, I know you had mentioned in the past, like even things like unfinished projects can affect your space, right? Like, you have, even like, there's a lot of shows out there about like creating minimalism in your space and things like that. So that could be helpful. Marie Kondo or whatever. Organizing. So visually, like if we have a cluttered environment, it's a cluttered mind. Are you talking about things like that too?
Well, sometimes if somebody's been in a house, so what I'm talking about is the residue of distortion pattern. So let's just imagine, okay? So, because you can start to create an auric field in a space. So what does that mean? So let's imagine that there's a couple that's lived in a house and they've been there for like 50 years, okay? And we'll give two scenarios. In one scenario, the couple is he beats her, let's just say, okay? So it's very violent, it's very heavy, there's a lot of control patterns, there's a lot of oppression patterns, perhaps addiction patterns, but they're in this house for 50 years. And as a result, they start to create like a mini auric field in that space. So you come into that space and it feels kind of weird and heavy and dark and you don't know why. It just feels not good.
Right.
Like if you're sensitive, you'll pick up on it,
yes,
for example. And what you're picking up on is the little auric field that they created in that time because they kept repeating those patterns over and over and over again. So I said you can actually create a little bit of an auric field in that space. Let's say on the other hand though, this couple is like really loving, okay? And they are happy together and they love their home and they're grateful and they take care of the land and there's a lot of love. They raise their family there. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's the opposite. When you walk into that space, because that auric field is still being created.
Feels good,
it feels good.
fresh.
You're like, and it feels like warm and nurturing. And it's like, I really like this.
Yes.
Okay, that can impact space. Okay, so the auric field, depending on how long people were there, how strong those patterns were, can create something in the space that when you walk into it, you respond to. Okay, so you may start to feel better in it or worse in it, and it may not be immediate. It may like start to happen, depending how long you're in that auric field. So that's important to be aware of. And so clearing your space with that frequency saging is actually important because then what is frequency saging? To me, that's when you reset everything to zero. It's like space, nothing, zero, as opposed to with anything in it, good, bad, indifferent, it's just nothing. That means you set the auric field. When you're in there with your frequency resonance, it feels clean. You've like walked into a clean space, you get to create whatever you want in it, right? It supports you in that way because it's like, it's nothing, but it's not negative, it's not bad. It's just like, it's neutral.
Yeah.
It's neutral. So you get to be however you want to be in that space.
That's great.